Hi there folks, my name is Ben and on this channel I like to talk about tech and in particular tutorials, and I also like to use this platform sometimes for a little bit of fun, nonsense, twaddle. Every 100 subscribers that we've hit, I've been making special videos like this one that's just a little bit different to say a big thank you to you. A thank you for subscribing to me, for watching my crappy videos, and for supporting me on my YouTube journey. If you hadn't already guessed it or seen it, a few weeks ago, this channel went over the ultimate milestone. We went over 1,000 subscribers. I was scratching my head for a while trying to think what this celebration video could be, and then a wonderful friend of mine came up with this very on-topic idea. In this video, I want to talk about the incredibly important world of APIs, what they are, why they're so important to all of us, and I'm even going to show you how to use one of YouTube's public APIs to get the subscriber count of a channel without being on the YouTube website. So, let's do this. Sup? I bet you thought I was going to do my usual post-intro intro. Keeping you on your toes. There is a huge amount to cover in this video, but before I dive in, I want to say thank you. Thank you for helping me pass 1,000 subscribers. Party mode, party mode, party mode, party mode. Yeah, look at that. Party mode. My hat fell off. Yeah, I juggled Satsumas and made a hat out of a red Solo cup. What of it? Party mode. It was a personal goal of mine in this crazy year 2020 to try and hit 1K subs, just to give myself a little target to try and reach for. And thanks to each of you, we were able to do that. So honestly, thank you. So APIs, what are they? APIs make things like Tom Scott's this video has X views possible, where the number of views in the title is constantly updating. It makes a huge list of different weather apps possible. It makes things like Twitter bots possible. It makes things like those travel booking websites possible, where they're actually getting travel information from different providers and airlines. It makes things like that pay with PayPal button possible on different websites. And it even makes programming possible for developers. API stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's a really fancy way of saying a bunch of tools or functions or instructions that other people and software can use to sort of trigger functionality in your code, in your software. It's all about abstraction, and that's one of the big fundamentals that computer science is built on. You're not interested or bothered how the weather services get their weather data or all of the algorithms behind the scenes. You're just interested in, give me the weather today in this city. APIs are absolutely everywhere, and they are integral to our modern technological world. One of the best analogies I've heard for APIs is a restaurant. You going to a restaurant, you interact with the waiter. The waiter is essentially the API. He has a menu, he has a list of options that you can do or get or receive in the restaurant. Behind the scenes is where all of the logic and algorithms and all the stuff is happening in the kitchen, the cooking. You're not interested as a client, as a consumer, you're not interested in the goings on in the kitchen. You're interested in, hey, give me a burger. And the kitchen knows how to do that. And the waiter acts as a sort of API, an interface between you and the kitchen. The term API is actually quite ambiguous, and APIs can actually do anything. It is essentially a point of entry for you or your software to communicate with another piece of software. That's the real boiled down version. Our modern world relies so heavily on APIs, and you might not even realize it. For example, the magnitude of weather apps I was talking about before. They don't all go and collect their own weather data. They don't all have like meteorology scientists and stations around the world collecting the data. They rely on public APIs to give them the weather information that they then display. For example, the Weather Channel has its own publicly accessible API. In fact, the life of a developer that wants to try and access some data that they don't know how to get hold of has become really easy nowadays. And in fact, there are loads of lists online of publicly accessible APIs. For example, on my screen now, I'm on GitHub and the repo called public-APIs, and it literally, as it says on the tin, has lists and lists of public APIs on anything: animals, calendars, businesses, events, finance, food and drink. And if I just, for example, click on food and drink, it takes me to this list here, another subsection. So I can access taco APIs or meal database or cocktail database. If I click on that, for example, it'll take me to the website that tells me more information about the API and how to access it. And usually for these RESTful APIs, these publicly accessible APIs that are accessible as sort of web services, you'll get a HTTP URL, okay? And I can copy that and I can paste it into the browser, and you can see I've just done a search on their API. I'm not bothered about, their API, behind the scenes. I've searched for margarita on the cocktail database API, and it's given me back a bunch of data. And this is JSON data, just in case you're interested. I said the word RESTful just a second ago, and that's the usual term that you'll hear with like web-based services that you can access via a HTTP request. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. So as you can see, it was incredibly easy for me just to find some data about cocktails, and there is a huge plethora of other things that you might be interested in. I'll put a link to this URL in the description below. Now I'm going to show you an example of how we can use one of those APIs. In particular, Google and YouTube have exposed a YouTube data API. This API essentially lets you query channel information, channel data on YouTube, and for example, gives you back the subscriber count of said channel. So if we jump over to my screen, I'll show you how we can set that up so that you can start querying this YouTube API, for example. I'm going to go to the address console.developers.google.com, and this is a place that you'll go if you want to consume or use any Google-based API. As you can see, when I land on the dashboard, I already have this test project. We're going to ignore that. We're going to create a new one together. I'm going to go to hit this folder with the cog tab up here, and it's going to take me to my projects overview. I'm going to click Create Project, and here I'm just going to give it a title, a project name. So I'm just going to do YouTube API, but of course you can call it whatever you like. I'm going to hit Create, and now we have a project space within the Google Developers Console that we can now attach APIs into. So we haven't actually done the API part, we're just setting up a project at the moment. Once it's created, I'm going to hit Select Project, and I'm going to be over here, and you can see in this drop-down list, the YouTube API is selected, and that's important, okay? I'm going to go to the side, APIs and Services, and it's going to take me, again, just to the dashboard because I want to see this Enable APIs and Services button. I'm going to click that, and here it's going to give me a search box. I can search for anything, right? So Google Maps, for example, I can type Maps, and there is Maps APIs galore. I can type in, for example, Calendar, Google Calendar, and there's Google Calendar API. In this case, I'm going to type in YouTube. There's a bunch of options. The option that we want is the version 3, the newest one, the Data API v3. I'm going to click that. Now, it's going to take me to this little information page, which is incredibly useful. This documentation tab will often take you to, here you can see this Learn More tab if I just open this in a new tab. This will explain how to use that specific API because there might be different instructions for each. It'll tell you what credentials or authorization you might need, and it'll give you URLs and endpoints to contact that API. When I'm satisfied that I would like this API, I hit simply Enable. This has now attached that API to my project. Be warned, some APIs are free, like this one, for example. Some APIs you may have to pay for. Now that I'm here and I'm on my project, I'm on this API, I need to create some credentials to use to trigger this API. Some APIs, like that cocktail database one I showed you before, that didn't require credentials for me to trigger it. However, most of Google's APIs, you do require some form of credentials. So I'm going to go to this credentials button over here. I'm going to create credentials and simply API key. Different APIs might require maybe an API key or a OAuth credentials. I'm not going to cover that here, but simply this API just needs a key. So I've just generated one here, and it says how I can use it. I can pass it as a parameter with key and then the API key. I'm going to copy this information and keep it for later. So I've gone back to that YouTube API reference page, the documentation I was talking about before, to understand how to use the API. For example, it says here, nice and simply calling the API, I'm going to need an API key or a OAuth token. We've got an API key. I already know the details of the endpoint we need to call, but for example, you've got all of these things on the left that you can look through to try and figure out the data that you want to get. For example, there's a comments endpoint, or there's a playlists endpoint. The information that I want, the subscriber count, is within channels. So if I go channels overview, you can see that there's different methods and different representations of the data here. And you can see here's all the data that I can get. And for example, statistics, this is the one we're interested in, subscriber count. So on this page, I can click one of the try it now options. That's usually a bit more explanation. You can try it in the side by providing your API key. I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Sometimes there's a fair bit of reading, but here it's quite nice and simple. It's given me the URL endpoint that I need to access to get this API. It says the HTTP method, so I need to just do a GET request. And just a little note, whenever you're in a browser, accessing websites, you're doing behind the scenes GET requests to that website. And it then tells me about parameters that I can give it to sort of make the data smaller and more precise, basically. So in the end, my URL will look like this. Above it is the key. There's my API key that I copied and pasted earlier. I'm using that URL and adding on the channels endpoint, which is the one that we're in and interested in the data in. And I'm going to use question mark to give a bunch of URL parameters. So I'm going to use the part URL parameter and provide statistics. And as you can see back on the documentation, statistics was where that subscriber count information was inside of, and the part parameter can just narrow down and just give me the statistics back, which is useful. And then I need to provide an ID, and that's the ID of the channel that I'm interested in learning about. And of course, I need to provide my API key. So if I just paste my API key in here in the end, and the ID that I'm interested in is actually my own channel. So I'm going to go to Ben Kadel YouTube, can't type. I'm going to click on my channel, and in the URL, there's this strange string formulated here. That's actually my channel ID. So I'm going to copy that, I'm going to close that, and I'm going to paste my ID into that section. So it should read something along the lines of part statistics and ID and key. And now when I access this URL, I can even go to a browser and paste it in, and it will return to me JSON with the subscriber count information deep within it. Just to show you, if I didn't provide the correct API key, so I'm just going to delete a letter, you can see that I'm going to get a response that says API key is not valid. So that's useful to know. Now that I know I can get response, let's put this in a script. So from the terminal, I can just trigger, hey, give me subscriber count. I'm going to jump over to the terminal and I'm going to create a new script. I'm just going to call it subs. So I've created a file called subs with the touch command. I'm going to chmod 755 the subs file. So that means that I can trigger it as an executable. And then I'm going to actually edit the file. So I'm going to go v subs to open it up in Vim. I'm going to start by giving it the shebang, which is really important. And I'm going to use the most portable shebang. I'll put a link in the description down below if you want to read more about that. Next, I need to make a GET request from this script somehow. And we can use a program called curl. And curl makes HTTP requests. And we can say, hey, do a GET request. In fact, GET is what it does by default, or we can make it do different HTTP methods. I'm going to put in some quotes here, and between those quotes is where I'm going to make my URL request. I'm going to go back to my URL, and I'm going to yank it. I'm going to copy it over, and I'm going to paste it in. And at the end of it, I'm going to put that quotation mark. I'm going to just set the wrap so you can see it all on in one screen. So I'm going to make a curl, and it's going to give me that back. If I just save and run that now, if I just save and run subs, you can see it's going to do what it did in the browser, and it's going to give me back that whole object. But I'm just interested in the subscriber count thing. So I want to take that data and I want to sort of manhandle it just to give me subscriber count back out. So we're going to go back into subs. I'm going to set the wrap again. And actually, what I want to do is use a tool called JQ. And in fact, I've done a video on JQ right back at the start of this channel. JQ is a really useful terminal JSON parser. So we can take JSON results like we just got and parse it and actually understand, oh yeah, this is one object, this is an array, I want to get this object and I want to get this array, and so on. Pick out specific datas. So I'm going to go to the end of the line. I'm going to pipe the result into JQ, and then I'm going to give it a very specific JQ command. And this is really important to understand that this is JQ specific. So if you head to the JQ site, of course, link in the description below, you can read on how to use JQ to actually parse the JSON. What do I actually want to do with JQ? Well, if I drop out of Vim and just look at the response again, you can see this is the overall object. Inside, I'm looking for the one that is items and square brackets an array. So it's the first item in the items array. Then I'm looking for an object called statistics and subscriber count with a capital C. So items, first one, statistics, subscriber count. So let's go back into Vim. I'm going to JQ in single quotes, dot, this is JQ syntax, items, square bracket 0 to get me the first in the items array, dot statistics, I think I spelled that correctly, dot subscriber count with a capital C. Now, if I save and run subs, and you can see that we need to first of all remember to silence the curl progress bar there, but you can see the result has come back. Instead of the huge object, we've got now 1030, which is the subscriber count. Just for completeness, if I head back into subs, I want to silence curl, that little progress stuff, all the percentages we stuff. With the S tag, you can silence that. And actually, I don't know if you saw it, but it came out, the response came out with quotation marks around it, which isn't nice for doing if we pipe it into other scripts. So I'm going to just, right at the end there, I'm going to pipe the result from JQ into sed and just use a replace to replace quotes with nothing. So here, this is what I want to replace between these forward slashes and between these forward slashes where there's nothing, that's what I want to replace it with. So I'm saying replace all quotes with nothing. So now, if I run subs again, you can see curl was silent with that tac S, and now we've got 1030 without the quotes around it. So that's incredibly powerful. We found how we can use a API, a web API with a HTTP request using curl and some other tools to actually get information from a website and bring it into the terminal. And we can put it in any sort of script we want. We could put it, for example, in the PS1, in this prompt here, to run every time the prompt displays, which is a really terrible idea because it's a network request every time your prompt redisplays. You could do something else like use a caching system so that perhaps the network request runs every few minutes, using cron, for example, and puts the results in a file, and then you pick it up with your PS1 every time it refreshes. A file read would be far easier. Or you could use, like I was saying, cron to run every 5 or 10 minutes or however long you want, and use tools like notify send, which puts a little pop-up. In fact, let me just show you. Puts a little pop-up in the top right of your screen saying, hey, you've got 1030 subs, for example. And on Linux and Linux distributions, that program's called Notify Send. And on Mac systems, you have to use the OSA scripting feature to say, hey, display a notification and pass in the information. So there, for example, is that script. What I'm saying is, now that you've got the data that you're interested in by using the API, you can do whatever you want with it. And that's the incredible power of publicly exposed API endpoints. And this sort of communication with APIs is happening everywhere. It allows one service to essentially talk to another and use the data from that service without having to worry about how that data was created or collected. It just, like in the restaurant, says, hey, I want a burger, and it gets a burger. Just as a final extra bit, I want to show... Oh, I have a Twitter notification. Let's pop that bad boy on screen. Oh God, no. It's Ken Badel again. This was the fictional character that I created in my Git Part 5 series, and that has been contacting me ever since the 500 subscriber video special. Oh, he's written, I do not know why you created me and then abandoned me. I've been growing, learning, studying, everything. I've even taken on a physical form. Life is suffering, and you did this to me. I have located your machine and will now make you suffer as I do. Sorry, Papa. What? What? Hacked? What? Nothing's working. What? What? A problem has been detected. Your OS has been shut down. Fatal error, no immediate cure. Hacked by an external agent. What? Come on. I need this computer. Everything's on it. This is... Ken Badel. Ken Badel's done this. I need some help. I need to deal with this. I'm sorry. Help. Can I deal with it? As usual, thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much for watching all of my other videos if you have. It truly means a great deal to me, and I'm incredibly touched that so many people want to subscribe to me. Of course, if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button, and let's get to 1 billion subscribers. 2021. If you have any questions about anything in this video, please feel free to reach out to me at my Twitter, @Ben_Kadel. And of course, if you have any video recommendations for me or anything that you want me to particularly cover, then please let me know in the comments down below. I do read them. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Show you how you can... Hey guys. My microphone over here. Sup? Not so high pitched. Sup? This is so stupid. On the Mike is gonna be well upset, aren't you, buddy? You're gonna be really upset. Party mode, party mode, party mode, party mode. Oh my god, this hat is so stupid. Oh, it's broken! The hat broke! Make you suffer as I do. Sorry, Pap. I got the tweet wrong. Yahtzee.